hate you from my head to my toes. I hate you from my head to my toes.
I've got haters. You've got haters. We've all got haters. Even God has haters. Jesus said that if the world hates you, remember, it hated me first. Quite frankly, it still does, and that's the subject of today's video. I want to take a look at how the haters of God actually showcase that hatred through the various signs and symbols that we see around us every day but may not notice. First up, the Big Apple. New York City is known as the Big Apple, of course, and I think that harkens back to the story of Adam and Eve in the Bible. The apple being a symbol of forbidden knowledge, being a symbol of temptation and evil. It's like an invitation to sin. Whatever sin you can think of, New York has it. Come and take a bite. That's kind of how I see it. You guys remember the Twilight series? The cover art featured a pair of hands holding an apple, as if making that offer, as if to say, come and take a bite. The main character of the book, Bella, had a decision to make whether or not she was going to partake of this sort of forbidden world of vampires and werewolves and become something other than her human self. So it was a big decision to make whether she was going to partake in this forbidden thing to become more powerful, more beautiful, and yet dead. Hope that wasn't too much of a spoiler alert for anybody planning to read it, but we see this sort of imagery, this symbolism a lot. We also see it in everyday things like Apple computers. You'll notice that the Apple computer has an apple on it, but there's a bite out of it. The original Apple computer was sold for $666. You may think that's a big coincidence, and maybe it is, but I did want to point that out. And speaking of 666, did you know that New York, the words New York, when you add them up in English gematria, the value for each letter, it actually comes out to 666. There's another very interesting coincidence for you. And as crazy as it sounds, New York even has a Broadway, you guys, a Broadway. Jesus said, enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go in by it. Because narrow is the gate, and difficult is the way that leads to life, and there are few who find it. Okay, you may think that's a stretch, but I think I'm onto something. I think this is a clear message of rebellion against God, of hatred against God. When you take a look at the Big Apple, the forbidden fruit, forbidden knowledge, what God forbid, when you take a look at the 666 city that New York is, and when you look at the fact that the heart of that city is a Broadway, I think a clear message is being sent. I think the architects of our little matrix, when they designed the city of New York, including Broadway, including the tower, which I'll talk about later, the One World Tower, I think they were sending a clear message to God when they did it, which was basically, we're going to do it our way. We don't care what you think. We're going to be gods unto ourselves, and we're going to do what we want. In fact, one of the most famous New Yorkers of all time, Frank Sinatra, was famous for singing, I Did It My Way. So it's sort of this unapologetic promotion, love, embracing of sin that seems to be prevalent in some of the symbolism. The Big Apple, taking a bite out of the apple from the Garden of Eden, walking the broad way, when Christ says that it's the narrow way that leads to life. And then also just the gematria behind the city itself, the 666. I think all of those things sort of are a kind of a covert way of communicating a truth that's hidden from plain sight. And lastly, when you look at the fact that the Broadway, is promoted as the heart of the city, the heartbeat of the city, the attitude of the city, I think that's also a way to communicate this sort of open, or I shouldn't say open, but hidden rebellion, hidden hatred for God. We're walking the Broadway, whether it leads to destruction or not. What's that saying? I'd rather be a king in hell than a slave in heaven. I think that's the underlying attitude there. And of course, they will get their wish. There won't be any kings or kingdoms set up in hell, but there will be plenty of wannabes. That's the point I'm trying to make. All right, so I know it seems like I'm beating up on New York City, and obviously there are other places that have a lot of sin, but I just noticed the symbolism about this one, and so that's why I'm going to move to talk about the tower next, the One World Tower, or the Twin Towers. Let's go.
And the whole earth was of one language, and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do? And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth.
So think about that. We now have forbidden fruit. That's one. 2, we have a Broadway. And I guess you could say 2.5, we have the 666 New York thing. But 3, we now have a tower. Okay? And all 3 of those things in Scripture signify rebellion, sin against God, hatred against God, the desire to overthrow God's authority. That's what the tower was all about. It was about height. At least that's my personal opinion. I believe it was about height. I believe they were building the tower high enough to reach the heavens to overthrow God. At least that was their plan. The scripture says that God sits above the circle of the earth. It says that heaven is his throne and the earth is his footstool. And I think that he meant that literally. So I think that the tower was about height, and that they were trying to build a tower high enough. They were attempting to build a tower high enough to reach the heavens. Now, did I just low-key start talking about flat earth theory? I kind of sort of did. I did. And I didn't mean to, but I just wanted to say that that's what I think the tower was all about. But I also wanted to add that I do not think that the One World Trade Center tower is about that. That's not what I'm saying. So please do not misquote me on that. But I am just saying that the tower is symbolic of that first attempt to overthrow God, and God thwarting that attempt and scattering all of those pagan religion, Lucifer, Satan worshiping people around the earth. And that's where we get all of our false religions of today. They all come out of Babel. They all got scattered, and they've been very busy since. Which means I'm going to do part 2 to this video, They Hate God Part 2, where I'm going to take a look at some movies and pop culture, The Avengers, for example. I'm also going to look at Marvel Comics and their connections to Scripture, as well as the movie Castaway and the interesting connections to Scripture there. I'm not sure if a lot of people actually have noticed this one, and I think you'll find it really interesting. And I'm also finally going to look at the use of the words I am. And if you know anything about scripture, you know that I am is the name of God. So please tune in for that. If you like this video, please show that you like it by clicking the like button. That would be very helpful for me. I like to know that people are out there listening. Also, if you could please subscribe, that would be great. I think you'll really like the videos that I'm posting. A lot of new information that I don't think a lot of people have been sharing. And also, if you could please share it. Now, take a look at my videos if this is the first one that you've watched. I have two really good ones that I'd like to recommend. One is on the coded message embedded in the Hebrew surnames of people in the United States. And then the second one is Yah's World Order versus the New World Order. That last one actually I think is pretty good. The first one actually is pretty good. So I guess I'm saying they're both pretty good. So please check those out. And thank you for listening. See you next time.
I hate you from my head to my toes. I hate you from my head to my toes. I hate you